And now it's story time with Uncle Skid.
Nah, you best put the kiddies to bed for this episode of So That Happened.
Hey everybody, this is Kirk, and I'm here with Skid Jones and Paul McClevich from Go.Go. How are you guys?
Great.
Awesome. So, first of all, were you from Sacramento? Where are you originally from?
I'm from Southern California, and ended up moving to Dixon, California, right before high school. So I was kind of a lone punk rocker in Dixon. It was not a pleasant experience. I got beat up a whole lot, and tried to get away as often as I could. Ended up hitchhiking a lot to Sacramento, and then got into the punk scene in Sacramento and started playing music here, and that's how.
How did you first start playing music altogether?
I started playing really young. My uncle lived with us when I was a kid, and he was in a garage band, and he was a guitar player, so there was music all around the house, and I started playing guitar. I've been messing around guitar since as long as I can remember.
So pretty much self-taught?
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely self-taught. No one can take the blame for what I did.
Victimless crime.
All me. Sorry.
Very good. Yeah, so talk a little bit about how, you came in to decide to, join a band or form a band or...
Well, I had played, like, my first band was when I was 7 years old. I did like Buddy Holly and Kinks covers, but by the time I came here to Sacramento, would come to visit and hang out, I just kind of fell in with this guy Jay Hyde, who I just met him at a show, who was a nice guy, and he knew everybody, and he introduced me around, so I kind of fell in, and I was going to anything I could see. I mean, Sacramento at that time, there was Club Minimal just started, which is a legendary punk place, but there was Galactica, there was Club Can't Tell, the Oasis Ballroom. I went everywhere to see bands. Just any way to get out of that city and be around music, I did. I saw you guys in the Vale before I knew you guys.
But, what, Fat Fonzie?
Yeah, with a fake ID,
Yeah.
smoking all the time, so they didn't kick out this kid who looked 12.
Well, Paul and I were 18. We weren't supposed to be playing the club either, but that was the time. Yeah.
Exactly, but that's how I came to Sacramento and got to meet people and started playing. I saw an ad in a punk zine called Spam Zine, looking for a guitar player. They're going to reform this band called Forced Tradition that I really liked, and I answered the ad, and that turned out to not be that. It turned out to be a band called Danny Pooh and the Roto Doggies, and that was my first band in Sacramento, and that just kind of opened everything.
And then when did you start writing songs of your own?
I think I was always writing them, but when I really started thinking about it was probably around that time, probably about 15 years old, 15, 16, actually writing real songs.
And who were your influences at that time?
I loved the Stooges, MC5, Alice Cooper, your basic rock groups, but Bowie, T-Rex, just, I loved rock and roll, I loved soul, I loved Motown, but I knew I was never going to sing like Otis Redding or be able to play that stuff. So punk, really, Ramones changed my life.
Very much.
Obviously, Ramones, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And there you go. My dad brought home the first Ramones record when I was a little kid. And he's like, you got to hear these guys. This is fucking crazy. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So the Roto Doggies broke up, and with me and Jay Hyde started a band called Ack, which was, we played punk in the punk scene, but we weren't a punk band. It was more of a swampy, surfy, kind of a garage stuff, kind of like more Cramps influence stuff. And at some point, our bass player, who none of us really cared for, who's in prison now for murdering his wife, by the way, he left the band, and we needed a bass player. And Tim, our drummer, talked to you, and you told him about Paul. And so he said, I got this guy, Paul, and I told my girlfriend at the time, hey, Tim found a drummer. His name's Paul Niklevich, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna hate him." And I was like, "Really?" She said, "Yeah," because she had been dating the guitar player in your guys' band previous to me, and because I was a really anti-pot guy, and she's like, "He smokes pot all the time," and I was like, "Well, if he could, I don't care if he smokes pot as long as he just doesn't tell me how awesome it is all the time." Because that's what I hated about pot smokers. They're just always talking about how fucking awesome it was. But so the first time we were going to practice at Tim's house, he pulled up in an old fucking Chrysler station wagon, which obviously I loved. And he got out wearing an Iggy Pop shirt, and I was in love immediately. I was like, he's in. I don't care anything. And he was way too fucking good for the band. And I was just petrified that he was going to be like, no fucking way. And you did think we sucked. You were just desperate to play.
Well, I thought it was a fledgling band, and they had a lot of the songs have a similar structure. It worked out. I mean,
Yeah, and so then you guys started playing, and now it started gelling.
The first show we ever played, I had quit doing drugs and drinking for quite some time before that. And the first show we ever played was in a club called the Light Rail Inn. And I don't know why we were headlining, but when we got there, the guy who ran the place was like, "Hey, you're in the band, all the free beer you can drink." And so I started drinking like I used to drink, forgetting that I didn't drink anymore. And so by the time we went on stage, I flipped the switch of my amp and the light went on, and I was just fucking hammered. And I think we played 2.5 songs. I couldn't find the microphone. I fell down, threw up, and I remember him carrying me back to my Volkswagen bus and me just sobbing, saying, "I'm so sorry, Paul. I swear to God, don't quit. I'll never do this again. I swear to God, I'll never do this again." And I never did it again.
you never did it again. I remember thinking, I would think it's pathetic if he wasn't so fucking cool. That was awesome. I thought it was great. It was like better than Darby Crash and Sid Vicious put together. But yeah, so it was. I don't know. It was a match. It was a match made in heaven because it worked
Our
out.
personalities just immediately, we loved the same stuff. We laughed at the same jokes. We had the same juvenile sense of humor. And just, I felt like this guy gets me. Like, it seemed like a long lost brother, like immediately. And we just had a connection. And he's been my best friend ever since.
If you find the missing ingredient with Paul, and then the songs just started continuing to come, and then how did you know that it's like, wow, we got something here?
Well, like I said, he was way better than the band was. And he, without saying it, he just made us better. He just started singing along, harmonizing, making me a better singer, making me think about things a different way, adding, "Hey, what if we tried this?" Just without like taking the lead, he basically took the lead and just made us better. And we were a 4-piece at that time. And then Jay Hyde, he was the other guitar player, and he decided that he was going to leave. And so he left, and as a 3-piece, we were like, this is us 3 works. We can really be dynamic.
Yeah.
We were doing the quiet, loud thing before, like the grunge thing. A little too early.
Yeah.
And we saw Nirvana when they came around, and we were like, "Hey, they're doing what we do, but just much better."
Yeah.
But so that was the way. Once he was in the band, that's when I really started thinking, like, we can write good songs. We can do stuff, because all I need is a basic idea, and then he'll flesh it out and make it, work into something better.
Some man with a bottle of gin, CD tenders and a lively's grin. Standing in a hand window, the fantasy in the big white tie looked at me. I wanted to cry, then he ran his fingers through his hair. So I turned my head and looked the
once you realize you can do that, then you start shooting for it, and you start trying to do that, and then you start thinking, I want the lyrics to be important. I was very much an artist, and not a pleasant guy to be around. I felt that I had to put myself where I was when I wrote that song, and like if people were dancing, I would stop us. Don't dance to this. Just a total fucking dick. Like I was the type of person I would hate to meet now. Like if I met you, you'd say, "Hey, nice to meet you." I'd be like, "I don't know if I can say that yet. I'm not quite sure." Just a fucking prick. Just horrible. I don't know why he fucking ever liked me. It's bad judgment. Bad judgment. But I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
So
Then you're playing more gigs. Well, what were some of the clubs that you played that you liked?
well, I gotta tell you, when we started, right after we started, there was a club. There was a place called Bojangles that someone took it over and they called it Club Obsession, and we were the first band that played there. And that was short-lived, and then it turned into Club Me, and we were the first band that played there. Then that went away, and it was the Cattle Club, and we were the first band who played there. And for some reason, we got really popular, and we were able to play a lot. And we kind of did a thing to where we would draw a crowd, so we would help the promoter, Jerry Perry, to be able to bring in touring acts and cover their guarantee.
Yeah.
We'd play for cheap, so we played there a lot. We were pretty much the house band for a while. We were kind of like a big fish in a small pond for a minute or two here. That was,
Yeah.
we were hot shit for a while, and it went crazy. But I mean, like we used to play, we played Galactica 2000 with like Smithereens and
Yeah.
Social Distortion shows. I never got to play at Club Can't Tell. Always wanted to.
Yeah, never did.
That was a good venue. I played there a few times. It was very, very fun.
Yeah, I had great memories of going there, but never got to play there. But yeah, I mean, where else did we play? That Cattle Club, once that came, that was kind of
That was the place to
place.
go. I mean, there wasn't that much else. Everything else was still cover bands or just,
Yeah.
The suburbs had the Atticas and the Ian Shelters and stuff.
Eventually, we did like the Boardwalk
Yeah.
and Shirewood Pub. Right? Was it Shirewood Pub? Is that what it was called?
Yes, I think we did that once.
With Attica? Was that right?
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I think it was Cattle Club was just the place. That it was before there was Ironsides, Blue Lamp, Distillery, all the places that came along later. They just didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was kind of, there was a time, when there were a lot of clubs to no clubs, and now the Cattle Club, there was nothing really but that almost. So
But there always was a scene.
yeah,
There's always a place, and when I joined the band, I hadn't been playing for a couple of years, and Skid did for me what Jay did for him is brought me in and introduced me to everybody, and so it was great. And all of a sudden, there's this whole family of bands that was great. We all became great friends. We opened for each other
Yeah.
and played, and it was always fun. And we knew each other. It was like always. It's like always having a sleepover at someone's house almost,
So there was another three-piece band called I Love Ethel, and we played with them all the time. They were like our buddies. We're still great friends with them.
Yeah.
But stuff. Well, we did like there was the Post 61 VFW Hall. We played a show there with John McCrae and the Roughhousers, who
Oh, yeah.
obviously went on to become Cake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was stuff happening. There was like Jerry Perry would rent out like the Young Women's
Yeah.
Institute
That's right.
place, just and parties, shit like that. But yeah, that's what really got us going was the Cattle Club, and it just we did really well. And from then we started booking out of town gigs, going to San Francisco, shit like that. Back when we recorded demo tapes, we did our first demo tape at Samurai Sound in Davis. Dave Gill,
Yeah.
the drummer for Game
That's our
Theory.
album.
Yeah, exactly. So you're familiar.
Yeah.
We didn't get Brian Marnell to die on our record, but
Yeah, that was a one-shot deal. So, talk about how Momentum started, and then how did you guys meet Dwight Yoakam? How did that all start?
when we did a demo, we were back then. You just dubbed them deck to deck, and we were after in my apartment just dubbing them, and got sick of listening to it, and just put on a Dwight Yoakam record, and was drinking, and I was like, I like this guy. I'm gonna send him a tape, and took the address off the record. And a few months later, he called me at work, and he was like, "Hey, this is Dwight Yoakam." And I was like, "Sure." Hang up. And he called back. He's like, "No, seriously, don't hang up." And he convinced me that it was him, and he said, "Can you come down here?" And still, I thought it was probably just a great joke, but I went to the airport, and there was a ticket, and I flew down and got picked up at the airport and taken to his office in Hollywood. And he said, "I dig you guys." And he's like, "I hear the Stooges, I hear the Stones, and I like that stuff." And I was a fan of his, and I'd seen him opening for lots of punk bands.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "I want to manage you guys." I said, "Well, I got to talk to these guys." So I went up, and then he flew everyone down, and we all met. And, we were kids. And he was like, "You guys are going to have more money than you're going to know what to do with." All my ethics and fucking righteousness just went so long. Sure.
It was exciting. The thing about Gold on Gold playing with Skid was it was always something new, and I felt so empowered by the willingness to go out and do things that and play.
I remember there was a song called "Sweet Baby Laughing Gas" that I enjoyed a lot, that I was very proud of, and another song called "Colleen" that I was proud of, that I think that was probably our most like fulfilled, actualized song that really captured
The most defining song.
Yeah. I had found that I had run out of things to write about from my point of view, or that I wasn't particularly interested in my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So I started putting myself in other positions and wrote. So Sweet Baby Laughing Gas is from the point of view of Charles Manson.
Okay.
And Colleen is from the point of view of the guy in Colleen, Texas, who killed all those people at Luby's Cafeteria.
Oh man. Okay.
So I wrote a song from the point of view of Injun Joe from Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, just thinking in that way. I just kind of put myself in other people's shoes and write from that perspective. I found that was more interesting for me, and also I didn't have to be such an artist then and put myself in my shoes of how I was feeling when I wrote something, because it wasn't songs about like my girlfriend, how they were before, and
Right.
living that. So that, I think that was kind of the evolution of my songwriting at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
Then there's the rest of us just being a musical machine kind of thing, because we also put on the Mr. Heat Miser, which is for unreleased Christmas Sacramento Christmas album.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah, and that was pretty epic too. Exactly.
If I hear that, I'm still amazed that we did that. Like anyone did that. Like that's fucking crazy.
I missed a great Christmas. I missed the sun. I missed a heat blister. I missed 101. They call me
we knew that there were a lot of bands better than us, and we felt we were better than a lot of other bands. But there was an honesty, and
Yeah.
there was an honesty to what we could do, and there wasn't a whole lot of posing. It's you know, I had a mirror. I knew I was ugly. I didn't care. And I was fine, and we were very much ourselves.
We worked really hard. We practiced a lot and really, really drilled on being dynamic, because I think something Paul and I really realized was that as a three-piece, there's only so big you can get. So the way to make that seem big is you got to get real low. You got to get real quiet so it really seems explosive, like the loud, quiet thing, which obviously became very popular just a year or two later.
Yeah.
But it was, we really fucking honed that and drilled that and went over it and over it. And Tim was, he's a punk rock drummer. When he started, I mean, he had a fucking massive drum kit with rototoms and the whole thing. And we got him down to a 4-piece kit. And I mean, just the hardest hitting drummer I've ever played with still. Tim, not to sell him short, he brought great ideas to the band too. He was very much an integral part of creating the songs. I wrote the songs. I would come in with a basic structure, verse, chorus, bridge, whatever, but it was just a basic idea. And then those guys would bring what they had to it, and then it was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And then it just became to where you never had to like say, hey, what if you did this? It was just like we were all on the same page to where it just was happening. And there was a period of time where we couldn't stop writing. It was just, we couldn't keep up. We couldn't play all the stuff that we were writing. We were just writing and writing to where it was like we were writing and it's like, you know what? Fuck those songs. Let's take this piece from this song. Because we've got, there's songs we have that have bits and pieces from probably 8 other songs. And it just evolved.
That's great.
Still, it's still kind of to the and it's still my limited guitar playing is the bendy bendies. Single note.
Yeah, it lost into a lot. I mean,
Neil Young is gone.
so
Besides practicing, that was the other thing. It's just the camaraderie of the 3 guys, and we fucking laughed all the time.
Yeah.
On stage, it wouldn't look like that because we were just fucking playing so hard, and we did want to be really good, but we had so much fun off stage. But on stage, like you said, we weren't the best band, but we smoked bands everywhere we fucking played.
we were great at what we did.
Like,
You're intense.
we played in LA, we played in San Francisco, and they had huge scenes. But there's something about Sacramento. Bands are just better. Bands from here are just better. They try harder. I don't know what it is, but we played all over and saw the best that there was. And every time you come home, every fucking band in Sacramento was just better.
I think part of that was because, we didn't have the interest of the San Francisco, elite and the
Yeah.
LA and all that stuff. So we had to be because, there wasn't a propped up scene. We made a
Exactly.
scene.
It kind of, I think everyone kind of had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because even though we didn't have all that shit of the scene, the audience in Sacramento still was quite discerning. If you weren't good, they'd fucking leave or they'd fucking boo you.
Yeah. Turn their back easy.
I mean, it wasn't just like a San Francisco or LA scene where people are just there to be seen and to be there. People were going out and they wanted to be fucking entertained. You better bring it. And I've always loved that about Sacramento. It's, if you're good, they'll let you know.
Yeah,
And if you're bad, they'll let you know.
that's great. Let's go back to the conversation we were having about Dwight Yoakam. How get the tape to him? He's interested. He flies you down to was it LA?
Yeah.
Okay, flies you to LA. Things are starting to happen. Then what transpired from there? How did it shift?
Well, he booked us some shows down there. He started playing Raji's and Club Lingerie and the Gaslight. he wanted us to get our feet wet playing down there more. Started bringing us down like once a month to play, to gear up to record some demos. So, and the greatest thing was one time we played a gig and we're in the hotel room. And in the morning he called us. He's like, "Hey, you guys up yet?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Meet me at Guitar Center at like 10 o'clock. And so we went there, and he was like, "Hey, what do you think of Marshall amps?" You know, because I was playing a Fender Twin and a Lab Series combos together. I called it a Fender pile.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, Marshalls are fine, but I really rely on reverb because I'm not that good." And he's like, "You know, this new Marshall has reverb. It was the JCM 900, and they were brand new." And so I tried it out, and I'm like, "I dig it." And he's like, "Okay, we'll take that." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Paul, why don't you find yourself something?" And told Tim, "Why don't you go to the drum room and get yourself all new hardware and cymbals?" And then he's like, "Skid, let's go across the street and get you some backup guitars." And so we went to Guitars R Us, and he bought me a 68 and 69 Telecaster Customs to back up the 68 Custom I had. I was playing as a guitar.
Wow.
And then that night, the Guitar Center people delivered the Marshall amp to Raji's as we were sound checking.
Wow.
It was like,
Well,
I was 20.
What did you end up getting there, Paul?
I got a Fender 800 watt Fender BXR amp, and I think I got another jazz bass.
Yeah.
But the best thing I remember about that is Skid was testing out the Marshall, and he's like, it was all really loud, and some guy was like, "Hey man, I'm on the phone," and the other guy, like one of the other guys from the store, was like, "Sorry, that's okay." They go, "Would you have an ashtray? Can we get you some pizza?" And Skid's playing, and they're like, "Smoke, drink, whatever you want." And it was like, it was great. And so, I don't know, Young MC. I don't know if you know who that Young MC is. He was a rapper at the time.
Okay.
But he goes, "Who are you guys, man? I'm just here to get a microphone." And Skid goes like, "We're the replacements." And so he got his microphone, but they were treating us like, like royalty, and it was Christmas. It was like probably the greatest day of our life.
I was 21 years old.
Wow.
It was fucking insane. It was like I was like, this can't be real. And I was like, I'm like, we're gonna have to suck this guy's dick. You know he's gonna.
Tim's gonna do it.
That's exactly. Paul and I agreed right away. Tim can do that.
Tim's gonna do that. Yeah.
But so then, basically, what happened is then he booked us time at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, and here's the crazy thing: in the big room, and blocked it out for a week. Like we'd fucking go there and record all day, and then they'd put tape across the board, and no one else could go in. At one point, we were recording in the big room, and the Cult were doing overdubs on Sonic Temple in the little room next to us. It was just, it was like.
That's a dream.
What
come true.
like you know what, this song, it needs something different in the guitar solo, and I'm like, what would be cool, like a choral sitar. And he fucking gets on the phone, and fucking Glenn Campbell comes and brings a fucking choral sitar.
Yeah.
Glenn Campbell?
Yeah, it's just fucking insane. It was like the craziest thing.
That's on the song "Losers." On the
Yeah.
song "Losers."
Yeah.
So.
Wow. That's cool.
But so it was just like that. Like we go out to dinner, and you get the whole fucking banquet room just for us, and it's like rich people get everything for free. It's fucking crazy. But it was for us. It was a heady time, and then word started getting out in Sacramento, so we got bigger here because we were going to be the next big thing, and he was working on getting us a deal. We had shit recorded. Everything was going to go on swimmingly, and then
Yeah, what happened?
he just blew it. He didn't get the tapes to the label in time, so they dropped us. So he apologized, and we fucking recorded again. This time with Pete Anderson producing, and that was during the riots, right?
Yeah, that's the LA riots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were recording during the LA riots.
We were at a hotel. We had to drive right through the riots to get to the studio.
Yeah,
And the first time we did it, we didn't realize how bad they were. And I'm going, what's up with this? And there's people in the streets, and Skid's like, do not stop. Just run the red lights, run. And so we're like, okay, this, and people are like, we're hitting people with the mirrors of the van, just driving through. And we'd never been so scared in our life because shit was on fire.
it was terrifying.
It was burning.
Literally, shit was burning.
Yeah.
Whole blocks. You're driving down, and it's just on fire. Cars overturned. I mean, just people out in the streets. It was horrific. And then after that, they put the curfew on, so we could only drive going during the day. So we had to be done recording and get our ass out of there before dark.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a.
So what were those sessions like? I mean, you drive through, World War III, and then now you're going to the recording studio.
Well, the other thing I should say is that I felt like Dwight understood what we were about and everything, and we recorded, and everything went well, and it sounded good. And then I was like, okay, when do we mix this? And he was like, you go home, we'll mix it. And I was like, well, I want to. And he's like, no, it's not the way it is. Go home. So we went home, and then a couple weeks later, got cassette in the mail and put it on, and I just wept. I didn't know what that was. It was not us. It didn't sound anything like what we've been doing. Complete verses were missing. Choruses were flown in where they hadn't been before. It was bizarre. So the second time when we recorded with Pete Anderson, I was like, no, we really got to get this right. And I thought it was sounding good, and it did sound a little bit better, but still not the way I thought that we should sound. I
Didn't sound like it.
I thought our demo sounded better, personally. It really captured us more. And that was doing like 8-track shit,
Right.
But then he dropped the ball again. And then when we signed the deal with him, he had said, we'll sign this, but it's a handshake deal. If you're not happy, if I'm not happy, we'll just say, hey, it's not working out. We'll shake hands and we'll still be friends. Because we got to be good friends with the guy. I mean, we went to his ranch, we shot guns, we hung out, And then when it didn't work out, we called to say, hey, we want out of this deal. We couldn't get a hold of him. We just get a hold of his manager, and he'd say, oh, pass the message along, and he wouldn't call back. And so it took us forever to get out of our contract, because you have to have a lawyer send him what they're doing wrong. They have 90 days just to respond to it, and then another 90 days to correct it. And then if that doesn't work, you have to do it again. So we had to play gigs to make money to pay a lawyer in San Francisco to send him shit. And he was also still getting 15% of anything we made. So
Wow.
that kind of killed the band, because we thought we were going to be huge. We thought we were going to be Nirvana before Nirvana, and then it didn't happen, and everything fell apart. We've been built up in our hometown. We were going to be hot shit, and we weren't going anywhere now.
And basically, I left the band, and it was Skid and I were estranged for a while, and it was a horrible feeling.
Well, him and Tim, they both developed some pretty fucking good drug habits too.
Yeah.
Let's not leave that out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had spectacular drug habits. I mean, we were Herculean, and it was
It got to the point we would practice, and he would show up late, and come in, put his bass on, and lay down on the stage. Just laid it. And it was, I mean, we were all bummed, but
Yeah, yeah.
we didn't know how to deal with it. And we all dealt with it in different ways.
Yeah.
I was just done with music. I didn't ever want to play again. But some drunk driver ran into my car in front of my house, and with the insurance money, I had some songs I had written that we had never recorded that I just wanted to record.
Mhm.
So I asked Tim and my friend GB to go in the studio and help me record them. And while we were in there, they just kept saying, "This is really good. We should start a band." And I was like, "I'm done. I don't want to do it." I was just completely done. But what happened was one night I was in the bathroom peeing, and I heard a big crash outside my house, and some drunk driver had crashed into my car in front of my house, and it was up on the lawn. And anyways, long story short, I got insurance money for that car that he totaled. And with that money, I decided I had some songs that I had written that we never recorded that I just wanted to have for myself to record. So I called Chico and GB and asked if they would go in the studio with me to record them. And they said, yeah. So we went in the studio. I would have asked Paul, obviously, but I was still kind of, my feelings were hurt.
Right.
So I asked GB to play bass. And so we went into the studio, and the whole time we were recording, they were saying, "Hey, these songs are really good. We should start a band." And I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be in a band. I was just so bitter about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they were like, they just wouldn't stop. They wouldn't stop. So I thought, I said, I'll do it under one condition. If you can find T-Bone to play bass, then I'll do it. Because I was pretty sure he was dead. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and the last time I did, he was a really bad junkie.
Yeah.
And I was pretty sure he was dead. No one had heard from him. And it literally took Chico 2 days to find him. And he just called me and gave him a rough mix of the demo stuff. And T-Bone called me and he's like, "Hey, yeah, Chico gave me the tape. I'm in."
Wow.
And I was like, shit. So we did the first tape thing without him, but then we started a band. And that was my whole attitude changed. I was like, if I do this, it's going to be no concessions. I'm not going to sell out. I'm not going to listen to outside influence. It's 100% this way. And the whole artistic thing I had with Go Dog Go that made me uptight and nervous, I just threw it out the window, developed a character that was a real cocky thing, and it was just basically the matching shirts, like the uniform, just it was like everything. We were going to be the band like that we always wanted it to be.
Okay.
And and it was weird. We could not get a gig in Sacramento. No one would book us.
Really?
It was like, yeah, like Jerry Perry, who we'd helped out, for bringing other bands in and taking little money so he could pay other bands. He wouldn't give us shows. Brian McKenna wouldn't give us a show. No one. We could not get. Our first show was in San Francisco. We could not get a gig in Sacramento. So we started playing out of town, and then they were like, "Okay, you can play here."
So what were some of the clubs that you played out of town?
We were playing. The first place we ever played was a club called Brave New World in San Francisco, which was a upstairs pool hall above a jazz club. That was bizarre. And then we started playing Bottom of the Hill, Covered Wagon, Paradise Theater, all around there. We played Slims, stuff like that. But yeah, so then it was weird. We didn't really have any friends, so we built our following just by playing. Even when we came back and started playing Sacramento.
So it was just like starting over again.
Yeah, it was like, by that time, it seemed like all of our friends were, well, we didn't really have friends ever, even in Go Dog Go. It was like, it's not like we brought a ton of people because they were our friends, or we had a real hard time filling a guest list.
Right.
Even with just one person each. So
Yeah, until momentum started. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you started from scratch.
Yeah.
So.
and but it just started, doing that and just really honing what we did and focusing on it. And at some point, I got the inspiration because I remember seeing Buddy Guy. He would play with like 100-foot cord, and he would go out in the audience, and he had a guy that would follow him out. And I realized like we'd play in a lot of places where people didn't know us, and they'd hang out in the bar, you know. And I was like, well, how can I bug those people? So I need to get a wireless. So I got a wireless system so I could just, like, they all want to hang out in the bar. I just walk in there and walk down the bar and just drink all their drinks, go down the bar. And then GB saw me doing that, and he's like, I want in on that. So he got a wireless. So we started doing that, and then it just kept becoming more and more just, I don't know, just real cocky and show-offy. And I don't know what inspired it. A lot of it was basic. The thing was we wanted to put on like a stadium show in a little club. Like we had our own lights, we brought smoke machines, and then the pyros, like you can't really do pyro, but I'm like, well, if you just squirt lighter fluid all over the cymbals, they'll burn. And then we found out like when you hit them, it's really cool. It's a really cool effect. And so we started doing that, and then we started lighting bars on fire and walking through the fire, and we started lighting everything on fire. And it was like, it was really cool. But I mean, like the first time we did it, GB said, like, he's like, you know, we have to do that every time now. And I was like, what? He's like, you can't not
They're
do it. And I was like,
expect it, yeah.
fuck. And I liked lighting things on fire, but it did become like, you have to do that.
Did you ever have any close calls?
No, it's really safe. It really is safe. And this was before the whole Great White thing.
Right.
We got out just in the nick of time. Like, but most every place we ever played, I would tell them, like, we do this, and I want to tell you it's perfectly safe. Is it okay? And if they said no, then we wouldn't do it. But most places were pretty open to it. A couple places they said not to, like we played at the Crest for a Sammy show, and Brian McKenna, they're rented drums. He was like, do not light the drums on fire. And it's like, well, I said I wouldn't, and then we did. So
Here we go, yeah. So how did the name Magnolia Thunderfinger even come to be?
Magnolia Thunderfinger, which doesn't mean anything, but if you break it down, it's magnolias are pretty, thunder's loud, and a finger is how you touch. So it's a beautiful loudness that touches you. Which is reverse shit, but nah, it didn't mean anything. We always just called ourselves very quickly the Finger, just because it's such a long, stupid name.
Well, it harkens back to the 60s, you know?
Well, my favorite band's Creedence Clearwater Revival.
There you go.
And it has the same amount of syllables.
Right.
So we'd been playing a couple years, doing pretty well, and I started noticing at a lot of our local shows, Brian Wheat from Tesla was there.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was never a Tesla fan, but obviously you live in Sacramento, you know who they are, and you know what they look like. They've been around forever. And when I was in a cover band in high school, City Kid opened for a band that I played with at the Oasis, so I knew who they were. But he came up to me one time, he's like, you guys are a really good band, I like you a lot. And he's just a super nice guy. And he asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him, and he called me one day, and he said, hey, do you guys want to open for us at Arco Arena on New Year's Eve?
Wow.
And I was like, I didn't think, our bands were very different. I was not a fan of what they did. It was not my bag, the whole thing. I was like, I do want to. I definitely want to, because that, no doubt a lot of people would hate us, and that would be fun, because that was part of the thing with this band I liked too. I liked people liking us, but I also liked people hating us. As long as they had some sort of
reaction.
visceral
right?
reaction,
There
I
you
was
go.
excited about it.
There you go.
So I said, yeah, we'd like to do that. And they were so amazing. They gave us like the King's locker room for the dressing room, the big room
This was at Arco.
at Arco
Okay.
Arena. It was full of more booze than we could ever drink, fully catered, great food. They gave us a 100-person guest list. I think we asked everyone we knew. I think we got 15, maybe 20 people to go. We don't have friends, and that includes like GB's mom was there. It was and while we were doing sound check, like Brian and Frank Hannon were out there, like, hey, do you need anything? Do you need extra guitars? Extra, because the stage, we're not used to a stage that size. This is like before we even went wireless, and like you know. You have a 25-foot cable, you figure that's enough, but at Arco Arena, it's not.
Right, huge.
You're a long ways away from your amps, but while we were sound checking there, walking around, making sure the sound was good, just went above and beyond.
Wow, that's great.
Paid us more than we'd ever made. It was outrageous. I mean, and it was New Year's Eve, Arco Arena, first band opening for Tesla, and I was scared to death, absolutely petrified that we were going to be murdered, that the people were just going to absolutely fucking hate us.
That's what happened.
The crowd, in a rock crowd, when the lights go out and everyone's smoking pot, they're just excited to hear music. If you're the second band, you're fucked, because after the first band, they just want Tesla now.
Right.
But being first, it worked out. They were just happy that it was music. We did, I think, 25 minutes, just bang, bang, bang. Everyone loved it.
Awesome.
GB had borrowed that like 100-foot cord, and at the end stage dived. And so we were told afterwards we will never play a Bill Graham show ever again.
Because of the stage.
And we were like, well, we didn't expect to ever anyways. So, but yeah, I was glad to have the experience.
Did you light the cymbals on fire?
No, no. I think this was before we did that.
Okay.
I think we went a couple years before that happened.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But
Wow, what a great experience.
it was great, and it's one of those memories. It's like, there's no other way, had it not been for Brian Wheat, that we would have ever played in an arena. Just, it was not going to happen. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So just to be able to have that experience, even though it wasn't like our show, and like I said, 15 people knew who we were, but it's I still think about it and go, did that happen?
Right,
That actually happened.
right.
And that's Brian Wheat.
That's awesome.
Fucking great guy. I mean, those guys, him and Frank, they've done a lot of stuff with local bands that people don't know about. They've bankrolled bands. They've given bands equipment. They've recorded them. I mean, honestly, huge stars.
Paying it forward.
They don't, and they've always been just great guys. And
Yeah.
After that night, I'm a huge Tesla fan.
There you go.
I love them. I get it.
Yeah.
Now I saw them that night play, and
Well, they're a great live band.
they are. Yeah, I've been a fan since then.
Beautiful. So now what happened after that? So then you started gigging more. Did that land you any other gigs?
Well, we started doing really well and started touring on our own. We put out our own record, it was a CD then, our first CD, and started booking our own tours like up and down the coast. We'd go from Southern California up to Washington State, play all those places, and doing really well. And we had labels that were interested in us, major labels, and I was like, well, here's the deal.
That must have been scary.
No,
Coming from the Go Dog Go.
you would think, but no, I was adamant. I was like, here's the deal. First and foremost, $1 million non-recoupable bonus. Period. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we have 100% artistic control over everything. We produce our own records. We record our own records. We do the artwork. We do all that. We have final say on everything, period. If you're cool with that, we can talk. And everyone was like, well, that's not the way it's done. I'm like, well, then we're not going to do it.
Right.
And I'd say, and it's your loss
Yeah.
because we would shake up the world
Yeah.
just with being such pricks. Because I'm like, also we don't play festival tours. We don't play outside during the day. Any of that shit. We're not going to do radio tours. It's like we're going to play inside where it's dark, it's full of smoke, and period. And because that's the way rock and roll should be played. And when we do interviews, we'll say that, like, we're saving rock and roll because we're not going to play the Warp Tour where the music is a background for people skateboarding and doing flips on BMXs and it's all
Right.
advertising.
Right.
So we found that we pissed off most labels and shit like that. We had several people that wanted to manage us and a few that we tried. And I think the longest anyone lasted was about 90 days before they gave up. And it's funny, as time went on, we found that like there were fewer places that we would agree to play, like we would play there and they didn't treat us well, so we wouldn't go back, or places that wouldn't have us back because of the fire. And there was a lot of violence, like people would talk shit in the audience, we'd talk shit back, there would be fights, there were fights.
You're stirring it up.
It
then.
was very rare that there wasn't someone waiting to kick my ass outside after a show. It was almost all the time.
Wow.
Because I'm quick-witted and I'm really good with hecklers, and unfortunately, that's. I've never heard another band, but I got asked all the time, "Hey, is there any way I can get a record of you guys that's just the talking in between the songs?" So
So now, how many CDs did you guys, or records did you guys actually have?
the first things we did was that first cassette was the songs that we ended up selling that back when you could sell cassettes, and I think it was $5. And then we did another one we recorded in the Bay Area. God, I forget what the place was called, but it was recorded just live. It was a full album's worth. We sold that, and then we did our first CD was called A Lot of Motor Under Your Wheels. And I was working for Tower Records, and we were affiliated with Bayside Distribution, and I worked at International Department. So I was able to get Bayside to distribute the record, and because I sold all the international stores, the album sold incredibly well internationally. Sold like over 20,000 copies in Japan alone. It was ridiculous.
Wow. Cool.
But and then our second one was called Ramalama Fa Fa Fa, which was recorded, the whole thing recorded and mixed in 24 hours. And then our last one was called Almost Level with the Ground.
So then, eventually, unfortunately, how did that band come to its end?
It was kind of perfect. Like I said, over time, it built and it reached a place, and then it just kind of didn't go any higher. It just kind of was going, and it lasted almost 10 years. And by the end, I know personally, I was like, I don't like this anymore. It feels like work, and it doesn't pay that well. Right. And like when you're younger, going out on tour and being in a van with all these guys and sleeping on people's floors, it's romantic and it's fun. But when you're 30 something, and you've done it hundreds of times, it's not so much fun. It's hard. And but it's like, I think we all have the same feeling about it, but I never would have had the balls to quit. Luckily, GB did.
No, gotcha.
GB was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I think when he said that, all the other three of us all went like,
Sigh.
right on.
Right.
He did. So we all agreed it was a good time to end. We planned like 3 or 4 last shows, let everyone know. So we had like 3 or 4 really great last final shows. And as far as the band goes, it was a band like we never fought. We got along great. We were really good friends. It was like the perfect band from start to finish. Like it was a perfect experience.
No regrets.
No, that was I missed Paul.
Yeah,
I wish
yeah.
Paul could have been a part of it.
Right.
I love T-Bone, but I had this thing with Paul that, that I felt bad about.
Paul is as good of a bass player as he is a friend.
Yeah.
That's the way I put it.
Yeah. Like I said, he sang backing vocals on one of our records, and, we got back in contact and became great friends again. And, he said all the time, he's like, I'm so jealous. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted you to feel horrible and jealous. And now that we're friends again, I feel bad.
Well, I cut off my ties to Sacramento completely because it was stopping playing music was harder than any divorce, breakup, or anything, and that messed with my head more than anything. It's like, what you mean? You could try as hard as you want, put your whole life into it, and still have nothing come of it. And then it was until we had a brief reunion in 2008 where we played together in a room at a party, and that was the first time I played bass since 1999. And
He was great.
and I was like, oh my god, dude, why did I stop? And so
Great. Yeah.
it was and then that was fun. And then 6 years later, on my 50th birthday, we did the Go Dog Go reunion with Isla Bethel and the Earwigs and
We got Go National, Isle of Ethel, Earwigs, all to reform and play. It was pretty fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, personally for me, when we were doing that, we were very competitive. Not that we were dicks to people, but amongst just ourselves, our goal was to be the best fucking band that we could be, and we wanted to fucking smoke everybody. And if a band was really good, we could acknowledge it, but it pissed us off.
Yep.
And when you're younger, it's like you have friends, enemies, and rivals. And then as you get older, you just have friends and people you don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the other bands that we didn't necessarily appreciate at the time, now they're like the greatest thing in the world. It's like people that annoyed you, you're like, you're that guy and you're still here. I love you. I know what you did. You did what we did. And you had your own story and your own heartbreaking shit because you're not famous. So you get it. It's,
you have a quarter century history with these people, however involved or uninvolved they were, but they were there. And for me, everything came full circle with the reunion on my 50th birthday because it was the biggest draw in Ironsides in ages, and it was everyone that we haven't seen in 25 years. And we picked a certain age where all the people who were playing with us had all had kids, and they're all just empty nesters all of a sudden. And now they're back wearing their Ramones or Motorhead shirts with their bald heads or gray hair, and they were all there, and it was family again.
Fucking A, I can't believe this many people came out. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. That just goes to show how many people love you. If it's my birthday, fucking my mom wouldn't even be here. Let's try and remember these old fucking songs that are horrible. It's hard to swallow when you don't know how to breathe. It's hard to listen with your head between your knees.
And the time didn't pass. Is it 91? Is it 2014? I don't know, but this is great.
The time had definitely passed. I was way more tired.
Oh my god.
It was much harder than it had been, but that was probably one of the most magical nights of my life. Was that just to play with him again, to play those songs again, to play them well,
Yeah.
and in front of a huge crowd that seemed to know every single bit of it. But it's so weird because we got on stage and playing with him was like, oh fuck, there it is. There's that fucking sound.
Yeah, I remember that. Now, did you guys play again after that, or was it the last time you guys?
That was it.
That was it.
There's little periods, little chunks in like every decade where there's a special thing.
Yeah.
And it was like in the early '80s. For me, there was the Club Minimal, the punk rock place. It was special. It was a magical place, and like the Vortograph and stuff like that. Club Can't Tell. And then in the late '80s, that was when the Cattle Club came along, and that was a special thing. But in between, there was a little dead time. Then after that, started kind of dying down. Then Old Ironsides came along and picked up the slack. And then Sacramento exploded again. There was the Blue Lamp, there's the Distillery, there was Cafe Montreal, Cafe Paris, tons of places to play, and the bands were just stellar. So it's like Sacramento, like I said, bands, there's an incredible wealth of talent here, and the bands are just better. They try harder, just, I don't know. I've always been grateful to live here, and just knowing that I was in 2 bands that did well here, I'm proud of that, because it's a tough city.
So, though none of us made it to the pinnacle that we wanted, those bands and our music and the vibe that we created, the vibe that you guys created, is still there, and people still appreciate it. So
That's
you
nice.
got to be encouraged by that, because I'm talking to people all over the place, and they're all going, "Oh yeah, go dog go!" Magnolia, Thunderfinger. It's like, you're gonna talk ski. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear. Well, I mean, that's like how I feel like the features.
Yeah.
The features when I was a teenager and going out and seeing stuff, the features changed the landscape for Sacramento for being. They were probably the first like original band that had a huge fan base that I just saw packing, and like they were fucking pros. I mean,
Yeah. And they let so many other bands open for them. I think one of the first
Exactly.
gigs we ever played was opening up
Yep.
for the Veil, opening up for the
Yep.
feature.
My podiatrist he's working on my foot, and he was talked to me about bands, and he goes, I told him I played in a band, and I said, yeah, I played Go Dog Go. He goes, did you guys open for Jane's Addiction at the Factville Theater? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I was there. I was 16. That was awesome. And I go, I'm surprised you didn't recognize me. He looks at me and goes, okay.
the Sacramento music scene in the '80s.
Where were you? Were you there?
We were there.
Okay, we were there.
Where were you?
Where were you?